Daniel Jones has found a new home. He's found a new home, and it's a spot where he should feel right at home. Mm-hmm. You know, we frequently do the pop culture thing around here, and every single time a situation like this comes up, not to equate the Minnesota Vikings to a psychopath like Dr. Hannibal Lecter, but you do covet what you see, right? They covet. And what they once upon a time saw in the Kevin O'Connell breakout first year as HC in Minnesota, they saw one and done. They saw their last hurrah with Kirk Cousins, essentially. And they got one and done by a Giants team quarterbacked by Daniel Jones. I came into this studio after that, the wild card playoff game, and I said Daniel Jones looked just like Colin Kaepernick against the Green Bay Packers, where he ran it, you couldn't stop him, and he threw it, and you couldn't stop him. And anytime he wasn't running it or throwing it, he was handing it off to Saquon Barkley, and off he went. What a difference 2 years makes. Because it was off of that playoff win that the Giants signed Daniel Jones to a $40 million a year, 4-year contract that wound up just less than 2 seasons later or into it, too expensive for them to even play him and keep him based on his level of play. Certainly this year without Saquon Barkley, who is the MVP of the league. Yada, yada, yada. Daniel Jones gets released, and he's now a Minnesota Viking. And he's going to be signed to the practice squad. And by doing so, all they got to pay him is $100,000. That's it. Giants are on the hook for the remaining $11.8 million. He gets a little bit more scratch if he's moved to the 53-man roster, which I assume will absolutely happen by the time mid-December rolls around. Because the reason why the Vikings do something like this is if Sam Darnold gets hurt, Nick Mullins is the backup. Big Nick has performed well, but Big Nick doesn't have a playoff win under his belt like the one that Daniel Jones had against Minnesota. And Daniel Jones has a ton more experience playing quarterback in big-time games and just period than Nick Mullins, and has a physical skill set that Nick Mullins does not possess. And for Daniel Jones, he gets to go to a spot in a quarterback room that has Josh McCown in it, and Kevin O'Connell comes from the Sean McVay tree, and that's exactly the tree that Baker Mayfield sat under, and look at what happened with him after he had a few weeks in the Rams system. Obviously, he played. Daniel Jones, if everything works out for the Vikings, will not. But even for him to be exposed to that, and Sam Darnold's not under contract there next year. The only contracted employee they have at the quarterback position for next year is J.J. McCarthy coming off a knee injury. And if Daniel Jones wants to be the bridge quarterback there in a way that maybe Sam Darnold would be uncomfortable doing, certainly if he goes deep, and it's a win for everybody, except for the Giants. Because it's kind of crazy how Daniel Jones, who's being equated to Dave Brown in the Giants quarterback lore, guy comes from Duke. Everybody's wondering, why are we drafting a quarterback from Duke? And why are we placing all the eggs in that Duke quarterback's basket? And Dave Brown had as much of a successful run as Daniel Jones, with the exception Daniel Jones did have that playoff season and that playoff performance that caused Minnesota to say, we'll maybe turn you into the Jeff Hostetler. Can you imagine if Daniel Jones gets some serious action in a playoff game for this Minnesota Vikings team and performs well? Let me just tell you, whatever the Giants are feeling because of how well Saquon Barkley is playing right now, that would be the ultimate friggin' nightmare, is that they just let him walk and he winds up winning playoff games for the Minnesota Vikings.
That'd be pretty shocking.
But in the meantime, maybe, the Vikings should just go ahead and find out, the trade deadline's gone. If they can somehow, some way acquire Zach Wilson just to collect all the cast-off quarterbacks from New York. You know, Darnold, Daniel Jones.
I mean, Geno Smith could be a free agent.
Geno Smith.
It could be available after
Is
this
Ray
year,
Lucas available? I don't know.
Chad Pennington probably still
Let's
has
keep going.
some throws.
I mean, right now they just have a menagerie of quarterback cast-offs from the New York area. This is great.
What's Vinny up to?
I don't know. I saw him at the Fanatics Fest.
Oh yeah, we saw him. That's right.
He looked great.
He does.
I don't know. His Achilles looks repaired. Good Lord.
Gets the Sanchez out of the booth.
Can't make this stuff up. Can't make it up. Sam Darnold is atop a quarterback depth chart with Daniel Jones below him for a 9-2 playoff-bound team in 2024. If you had told me that going into the 2023 season, I would have said, you're out of your friggin' mind. But this is a great setup for the Vikings, and it's unbelievable. In 48 hours, Daniel Jones went from got to get him out of the Giants system to not a bad pickup type quarterback, right? And a mini Daniel Jones free agency period nobody saw coming in between weeks 12 and 13, you know? And well done, Minnesota. And if Daniel Jones does get in there and say Miami or Baltimore or heaven forbid any of these playoff-bound teams lose their starting quarterback and then are left wondering what we could have done with Daniel Jones right here as the in case of emergency break glass guy. So the Vikings get some much-needed cushion for Sam Darnold. They get a guy who's played in the playoffs, who's only going to cost him $100,000, who they know can perform in these situations because they once upon a time lost to him. And Daniel Jones gets to go to a spot where he's playoff-bound and can learn in a quarterback room or at least show the rest of the league when he's a free agent in 2025. If that's his future, I'm better for it. Catch the Rich Eisen Show every single day on the Roku Channel, 12 to 3 Eastern, for free.